You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Good morning, it's March the 26th, and welcome to Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News, your Psychedelics and Cannabis news source. Good morning, Rev Cindy. How you doing?
Good morning, Al. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing not too bad. Not too bad. I'm actually doing all right.
Good.
Yeah,
Good.
exactly. I know I got a rumble going on behind me. I don't know whether our listeners and viewers will hear it, but my sump pump is behind that wall and it's running like every 5 minutes.
Oh.
Yeah. Lots of water in the ground, lots of snow melting, and we got some rain coming. So it's spring.
At least it's rain, Al.
That's right. Exactly. And I looked at the long range forecast and I saw a bunch of double-digit highs. I was going, yeah.
Yeah. I head out to Vancouver 2 weeks from tomorrow, and I'm keeping an eye on the weather out there. And they're about 10 degrees ahead of us here. And I'm just excited to go for warmer weather.
Yeah. And probably maybe like when you get back, the weather where you are will be like at home will be much better than when you left.
Yeah, well, I went out this time last year too, and it was the same thing. Like I went out, or maybe it was a couple of years ago. I went out, and I went out to much nicer weather. I'm like looking at all the flowers as it's like snow back home, sending my friends pictures of my feet in the sand as they're sending me pictures of their dog in the snow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Just to remind everybody, hit the like and share button, please, especially if you're on Facebook, because Facebook says that we're bad people because we're spreading information and educational news about cannabis and psychedelics. So they've got us on restrictions, and they don't recommend us anymore because of that. So share away and help spread the news so that everybody can find out what's going on, because as we saw this morning, a news story popped up on a website that we use often that we didn't see when we were planning for the show, and so we've gone ahead and included it, added it to the broadcast. Going old school.
You get an extra story today, more bang for your buck.
That's right, exactly. So what do you say? We get started on that?
We should probably get started on that. Absolutely. Our first story of the day is coming to us from StratCan, and it says cannabis seeds and clones for Canadian home growers in 2026.
Cannabis home growers are again gearing up for the outdoor growing season, and cannabis nurseries and stores are once again bringing an array of options across Canada. For those buying their seeds and clones from the legal market, there is a growing array of options across most provinces and territories. And just note, Quebec does not allow people to grow their own cannabis at home, so they will not be available in your province.
Yet. But,
well, the Supreme Court has agreed.
What's that?
The Supreme Court has agreed with them.
Yeah, well, constituents can still speak up. We've changed other rules and laws, so I will stick the yet on the end of that, because I know people in Quebec that want to grow, right? We can get that changed for sure. Yeah. As the days grow longer and home growers start to organize their gardens, here are a few of the options available. Please check your local listings for other options as well. In British Columbia, retailers can carry not only seeds, but also cannabis clones due to the province's direct delivery program, which allows growers to ship products directly to retailers. Life Cycle Botanics, a cannabis nursery on Vancouver Island, has been offering clones on special order through dozens of retailers every spring. And this year they offer 4 varieties with deliveries expected to begin in early April.
The BC Cannabis Store website lists a handful of seeds from companies like Bag Seed Co., Kootenay, Aeroponics, and Weathered Islands, as do numerous private retailers. In Alberta, retailers offer several options, from Freedom Cannabis's 5-pack of cannabis seeds like Silver Haze and Painted Lady CBD, along with Weathered Islands, Tiki Madman, and others. Alberta's first farm gate store, Guerrilla Gardens, also tells Strachan they plan to carry clones later this year.
Nice. In Saskatchewan, home growers can find seeds from companies like Encore Seeds, 34th Street, and Bag Seed Company. In Manitoba, which began allowing people to go grow cannabis just in 2024, retailers carry seeds from companies like 410 Farms, Always High, Toba Grown, which is a great company, and Great Gardener.
Correct. The Ontario Cannabis Store currently lists about 30 different cannabis seeds, with 4 to 6 seeds each, with from companies like Weathered Island, Green Rose Seeds, Electric Genetics, and 34th Street Seed Company, while the BC Cannabis Store lists around 10. Now, in 2025, Kingston Cannabis Inc. in Ontario, a producer that operates a farm gate store in Kingston, began offering clones as well. The company currently carries plants from fellow producer Torcan. Another farm gate operator in the province, Royal Cannabis Supply Company, has also recently listed clones online.
Beautiful. In New Brunswick, Cannabis New Brunswick offers at least 10 different cannabis seed SKUs on its website. The provincial organization also hosts several industry and public-facing events in New Brunswick, including direct-to-consumer sales of clones from several local growers. Last year, friends of mine got some of those clones, and we are using them now. They're really great. Using the cannabis now, not the clones, obviously. Many of those growers also operate farm gate stores in the province, with clones as an option in the late spring. Wildwood Flowers, the flower shop, says it plans to begin offering clones from Green Rose Farms in the upcoming months. Another farm gate store in the province, Eco Canadian Organic, which I have visited, tells Strachan that they will be carrying clones again this year from Strain Hunters.
Oh, Strain Hunters. Wow. There they are in the package, eh? You can see that picture there. The NSLC Nova Scotia Provincial Cannabis Retailer lists several seeds online from 34th Street, but does not currently list any clones. PEI Cannabis currently lists about 10 different cannabis seed SKUs in its online store from companies like Green Rose Seeds, a Humboldt Seed Company, and 34th Street, including multi-packs and feminized seeds.
Beautiful. The NLC in Newfoundland and Labrador currently lists 3 different seed SKUs as coming soon with the onset of warmer days, presumably. Private retailers in the province also list seeds from brands like Green Rose Seeds. In the Yukon, some retailers list seeds from brands like Pristine Seeds, Humboldt, 34th Street, and Dutch Passion. Wow.
Yeah. So, a lot of people like to get their clones from their friends, so on and so forth, somebody that they know. For those people who don't know where they can get some clones or some seeds, some people this could be plan B, some place to get them. Instead of, over the years, I've seen people say, "Hey, buddy, you got any clones?" It's, here it is, the middle of July, and they've been looking for months. They haven't been able to find anything. So, yeah. And I see our viewer, Ben agrees. Yeah, local growers. So there you go. So that's an option, right?
It is.
And that's sort of been something that you don't hear about too often, is the seeds and the clones. And thought maybe we bring that up, bring that to everybody's attention. And
Yeah.
I know it's going to come up in another story later on as well, like just in a very small little bit, not
Yeah.
like that.
It is that time of year. Most people do outdoor growing only. So here we go. The government's getting in on it. I look forward to the day that they respect the fact that there are indoor growers as well and have the seeds all year round.
Yeah.
Just the
All
next
right.
step.
From that story, we're going to move on to the next one. And the headline here from StratCan, once again, it says, "Don't leave money on the table. Medical cannabis patients tax breaks." Tax season has a way of creeping up on Canadians, and for thousands of registered medical cannabis patients, it can often arrive with a largely unclaimed benefit. Despite the Canada Revenue Agency having recognized prescribed cannabis as an eligible medical expense for years, patient advocates and clinicians consistently report that many medical users have no idea that they can claim it. Given that medical cannabis still lacks a DIN number and there is therefore excluded from the most of the private insurance plans, this tax credit may represent the only financial relief many patients receive. Now, who qualifies? To claim medical cannabis as an expense, you need a valid medical document, which is essentially, but not technically a prescription, from a healthcare practitioner authorized to issue one in your province. You also need to have purchased your cannabis for medical purposes from a licensed producer with which you are registered. If both of these conditions are met, you are eligible. Now, something important to note is that cannabis purchased at a standard adult use retail store does not qualify, even if you are using it to manage medical condition. Now, the CRA draws a firm line that the purchase must trace back to a licensed seller and a valid medical authorization. Now, what can you claim? Now, eligible expenses include amounts paid for dried or fresh cannabis, oils, plants, seeds, and related products purchased for medical purposes from your LP. If you hold a personal production registration from Health Canada and grow your own medicine, seeds are claimable. The cost for soil, nutrients, grow lights, pots, and electricity do not qualify. You cannot claim them. If you are unsure what falls within the eligible growing costs for your specific situation, they say it's worth consulting a tax professional. Now, one nuance worth knowing is that certain Health Canada approved medical vaporizers are considered medical devices and are therefore claimable. Medical cannabis qualifies under the medical expense tax credit, which is a non-refundable federal tax credit. You can claim the total amount of eligible medical cannabis in any 12-month period ending in the current tax year, minus the lesser of 3% of your net income or the fixed federal threshold, which for the 2025 year was $2,800. Now, how do you file? Well, you got to gather up all your receipts from your LP. And then they say that most licensed producers make these available through your online account or via email. Now, add the total to any other eligible medical expenses you plan to claim. Then enter the combined figure in your T1 return. Now, you do not need to attach your receipts from the filing when you file, but the CRA strongly recommends keeping them for at least 6 years. Now, medical expense claims draw scrutiny, and if any audit comes your way, documentation is everything. So 6 years. It's also worth noting that medical expenses do not have to align with the calendar year. You can claim any 12-month period that ends in the tax year. Now, if in couples, they say it often makes financial sense for the lower income partner to claim medical expenses, since a lower income means a lower threshold and more of the expense becoming claimable. So there you go, Cindy. As you've been talked about many times here on the show, you get your cannabis through a licensed producer. I don't know how the setup was with VAC. Well, obviously, you still got to pay for some. So you'll have some medical cannabis that you would be able to claim.
Yeah, I've I've done this for years, actually.
Yeah.
It's being somebody who's been on medical cannabis for years. Before I was with VAC, I claimed it all. I was on a disability claim as well, so it really didn't do anything for me. But I still claimed it just because I could. I've, knock wood, never been asked to back that up. Although, everything is, with a licensed producer anyway, right? And yeah, with VAC, they pay for half of my prescription right now, so I can still claim the other half. And it gives you like a pretty good tax break, as any medical expense does. And just watch what you're claiming, because, if they decide to audit you, you do have to prove everything. So, don't try to squeeze in the stuff that they say you can't. Like, just don't. The audit is no fun anyway, especially if you do something wrong. And so get a tax professional to do it for you and let them ask their questions and be honest. But yeah, if you're paying taxes through income tax, it can help give you a good break.
Yeah, exactly. So it can help out. Everything helps out. And this is something, like you said, people have been able to do it for a while. But as the article mentions, a lot of people don't know.
Oh, we have no idea. Yeah. It was actually, I was on a provincial disability claim, and they're the ones that told me about it, that I could claim my medical, where it was a prescription medical expense. That it was, this is what you do. So the tax people didn't know, but the provincial, local disability / social services office knew.
Good.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. We shall move on.
Absolutely. I'm gonna click some buttons here. We're gonna head on to the next story, which is coming to us from Ganjapreneur. Federal bill in the United States would give state legal cannabis companies access to banking services. Whew, that's a big one. A long-standing issue in the United States cannabis industry may finally be inching towards resolution: access to banking. According to Ganjapreneur, federal lawmakers have introduced legislation that would allow cannabis businesses operating legally under state laws to access traditional financial services, something that has remained largely out of reach due to federal prohibition. Even in states where cannabis is fully legal, many companies are still forced to operate on a largely cash basis. That's because banks and financial institutions are regulated at the federal level, where cannabis is still classified as an illegal substance. The proposed bill would create protections for banks, ensuring that they can work with cannabis companies without fear of federal penalties. Supporters say this is a critical step for both safety and transparency. And this affects more than just the United States. It'll affect our banking as well up here in Canada. Handling large amounts of cash creates a lot of obvious risks, including theft, fraud, and difficulties tracking transactions. One industry advocate has previously described the situation as a public safety issue hiding in plain sight. Access to banking would also allow cannabis businesses to obtain loans, process payroll way more easily, and integrate into broader economy like any other regulated industry. While similar bills have been introduced in the past, progress has often stalled in Congress. Still, the momentum appears to be building as more states legalize cannabis and the economic footprint of the industry continues to grow. If passed, the legislation could mark a major turning point, bringing one of the fastest growing industries in North America out of financial isolation and into the mainstream banking system. Well, Al, what do you think about that?
I think it's just going to be added on to the long struggle that goes on for these businesses. And for them to do something about it. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
They don't mind these businesses having to carry all this cash. Like it's
Well,
a
there's
risk
so much
for
going on there.
employees.
There is, like when you take your cash, you got to carry your cash. Then you have to beyond trust your employees, like beyond trust your employees. Like they talk about not being able to like follow all the transactions, and that's true. So you really got to be able to trust your employees that, it's going into the cash register and not into pockets.
Yeah, stores gotta have a vault just for the cash.
Yeah, there's so much that goes on with it, not just that stuff, but as they said in the article, loans and payroll, and this is something that will affect many states across the country, both recreational and medicinal dispensaries.
Yeah, exactly.
And it'll affect dealings with other countries such as Canada and Mexico. So yeah, I they're desperately trying to find a way. Desperately.
Come on. Excuse me. All righty. From there, we're going to move on to our next story. And this one is coming to us from Leafly. And the headline on it says, medical cannabis provides anxiety relief for 94% of the patients. A new study published in the journal Nature Scientific Reports has found that the consumption of legal cannabis is associated with notable reductions in levels of daily anxiety, with 93.5% of participants reporting symptom relief. Researchers from Florida Gulf Coast University tracked 416 medical cannabis patients over 45 days, finding that cannabis demonstrated the largest anxiety relief when compared to other substances and activities, including alcohol, medication, exercise, and meditation. The findings come as the current anxiety treatments, such as benzos, face increasing scrutiny for harmful side effects and addiction risks. At the start of the study, all the participants completed the Hamilton Anxiety Rating Scale. It's a survey, a standardized tool for measuring anxiety. Now, the average score of all the participants was 29.58, placing them in the moderate to severe anxiety category. Participants were also asked to complete a questionnaire on their current and past cannabis and other substances use and how this use affected their anxiety. They were asked which sort of cannabis products they used and how they used it. The cohort was then tracked electronically for 45 days, during which time they received daily text messages at a prearranged time. In the message, a link to the questionnaire probed participants on their level of anxiety before and after using their medical cannabis, their cannabis use of the day, and they asked them to provide information on any of their activities that they engaged in. The findings showed that nearly all participants found relief from their symptoms of anxiety after using medical cannabis. 93.5% found cannabis to help them, and 4.4% found no change in their anxiety after using cannabis, and 2.1% found medical cannabis to exacerbate their symptoms. When compared to other substances and activities recorded by the cohort, cannabis was shown to have the biggest positive effect on symptoms of anxiety. Now, they say age, sex, and race were not shown to have effect on how anxiety was treated by the medical cannabis, and the researchers found that overall cannabis has demonstrated its ability to reduce symptoms of cannabis over a prolonged period of time, although in those who were more experienced with cannabis, the effects appeared to have diminished slightly over time. Now, there you go, Cindy. But yet again, more studies showing that cannabis can help out with anxiety. When I read that, and read about that, I think back, like 25, 30 years ago, on some of the things that I used to do. And that I used to always, at that time, I was smoking oil. And I would have an oiler, smoke a spliff before I went and did something, just to calm things down, and not even thinking I was using it medicinally. But I was, and because back then I didn't have Crohn's and cannabis was just something occasionally I smoke.
Yeah. Yeah. And you find, like, I mean, one of the jokes that one of the memes that I see going around about cannabis users hanging out specifically with non-cannabis users is, it's the non-cannabis users making a joke that, yeah, I invite my friend Joe to come with me, but he's always got to stop and smoke a joint first. And that's true. Like, I mean, I'm the same way. If I'm going to go out to a social event, I mean, like I'm hitting the bong or smoking a joint before I go. And it's to help with the social anxiety.
There you go.
And it works well.
Yeah, exactly. So it helps. There's no doubt about that.
It does.
That in my mind. So.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
We got what? One more story and then we go to break. Yeah.
One more story and then we hit break for sure. Okay.
Yep.
Our last story before break is coming to us from Marijuana Moment. Local officials in Washington approved measures to deprioritize psychedelic enforcement. That's kind of neat. A local government in Washington state is taking steps towards a softer approach on psychedelics without fully legalizing them. According to Marijuana Moment, officials have approved a measure that would deprioritize law enforcement efforts related to psychedelic substances, including psilocybin. This means that while psychedelics remained illegal under state and federal law, police and prosecutors are being directed to treat enforcement of these offenses as low priority, focusing resources instead on more serious crimes. Supporters of the measures say it reflects shifting public attitudes and growing scientific evidence around the therapeutic potential of psychedelics. Many advocates argue that criminalizing personal use diverts resources away from far more pressing public safety concerns. The approach mirrors similar policies adopted in cities like Seattle and Denver, where local governments have moved to reduce penalties or deprioritize enforcement for certain plant-based substances. Critics, however, caution that deprioritization can create confusion. Since the substances remain technically illegal, they argue that clearer regulatory frameworks are needed rather than piecemeal enforcement changes. Still, the move signals a broader trend. Psychedelics are increasingly being viewed through a public health and research lens rather than purely a criminal one. While not legalization, measures like this often serve as early indicators of where policy may head next. And I'm hoping that it's a bright light that is shining on legalization from this.
Yes, exactly. It's a start, right? They deprioritize it. They did that with cannabis in certain spots in the States. And now places are doing it with psychedelics. Now, they also state in the article that this does not mean to encourage driving under the influence or using these psychedelics in public places, selling them to people, or commercially manufacturing. It's just like if you get caught with some,
they'll take it and go, "Oh, bad person."
Yeah. Or maybe ignored. Maybe you'll get something else instead, or depends on the situation where you're involved in. So it's good to see. Like I say, it's a opportunity to eventually get to that point of legalization, because when it becomes a low priority and people see that the sky hasn't fallen, they become more open to things like that. So.
Yep.
All right. Anything else on that story before we go to break?
I don't think so. I think it's time for break.
All right. That's it. We'll be back in about 3 minutes. You're watching Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News here at paceradio.net and 420pace.ca.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, open Monday to Friday from 10 till 7 p.m. or by chance. Check out our flags, our t-shirts, plus our hats, and look of that supply of rolling papers, plus much more. We've got bongs and your favorite herbal vaporizers. Look at all the incense we have. as well as for those who collect knives, check out these knives in our collection. And while you're here, stop in to see Shay at the piercing room, where you can get poked by Shay. Daily deals, check them out. Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford, Ontario. Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420. Rerolled Saturdays. Check it out. Nothing but non-stop cannabis and psychedelic programming. Find it at 420pace.ca.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Hey, and you're watching Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News. Cindy, we have 4 more stories to go. Some stuff on alcohol, tobacco, as well as some information on cannabis sales here in the country. And one interesting story about the fact that if you get the group together with your friends, 3 or 4 of your friends, and you share doobies, that you are a criminal. You are a criminal organization. So we'll get into that during the second half of the show. Find out what that's about. We had a couple friends over last weekend. We're out in the deck smoking doobies. There was 4 of us out there.
You could be in trouble. I wouldn't admit that on TV.
Yeah, I wouldn't admit that either. All right, so we'll get started with the first story since coming back from the break, and it's coming to us from StratCan. The headline on that says that Canadian cannabis sales licensed space up as extracts and edibles gain market share. The latest sales and inventory figures from Health Canada indicate that total cannabis sales in the medical and recreational markets were up 23% in the third quarter of 2025 compared to the third quarter of 2024. Now, dried cannabis continued to account for the largest share of total of medical and non-medical sales at 48%. That's almost 13 million units. Although its overall share continues to shrink from 50% in the second quarter of 2025 and 51% from the third quarter of 2024. Now, the second largest cannabis product category after dried cannabis flower was the extracts at 28%, which includes the fast-growing vape pen category. This was up from 25% in the previous quarter and 24% year over year. Now, for non-medical sales, edible cannabis was the third largest product category at 24% of the market share, which is down 1% from 25% in the previous quarter. Now, sales of dried cannabis, edibles, and extracts for non-medical purposes were up quarter over quarter and year over year in July, August, and September. Cannabis topicals, sales, seeds, and sales of vegetative plants, clones, as we mentioned earlier, were up year over year, but down from the previous quarter. Now, for medical sales of dried cannabis for medical purposes, They declined by 5% quarter over quarter and 16% year over year. Sales for edible cannabis in the medical cannabis stream were up significantly at 29% compared to the third quarter of 2024 and up 6.2% from the second quarter of 2025. Topical sales remained essentially flat compared to the prior 3 months, but showed robust 15% growth compared to the previous year. Now, cannabis extract saw moderate year-over-year growth of 10%, but they declined by 4% in the most recent 3 months. And the sales of cannabis plants through the medical stream were down 54% compared to the previous quarter. They were up by 53% year over year. For retail sales, retail cannabis sales in Canada in January 2026 were $466 million, which is a 6% year over year, but down 8% from December of the previous month. So there you go, Cindy, some numbers, some medical cannabis numbers in there as well, stating on how they're going. I just don't have them right there in front of me. But yeah, the plants end of things, saying that, you know, maybe they're down right now, but year over year they're up. And I'm thinking, like, you know, we're still sort of, I've never seen any plants for sale. And being not with a licensed producer, so I wouldn't go to their website to even see any.
Yeah. You know, I take a look at these numbers and, you know, like it says the sale of dried cannabis for medical purposes has declined by 5% per quarter. But everything else has seemed to have gone up, even if it's only a 0.1% growth, like as we saw in topicals. Everything else is up. This is showing me that, you know, medical people are seeing the benefit in the oils, in the tinctures, and the edibles for longer lasting pain relief.
Yeah.
You know, and with a growing population, an aging population that gets into the medical cannabis, you know, and the other thing I would have liked to have seen in this article is the understanding that even though we have stuff bought under the medical regime and stuff bought under the recreational regime, most of what's being bought over here under the recreational regime, I mean, I still go to the stores. Like, oh, look, you know, like, I don't want to roll my joints today. I'm going to go buy some pre-rolls. Yeah.
I'm the same way. If I go to buy something that I don't produce myself, that I can't do myself, that's the same thing. I'm using it for medical purposes, but it would go underneath the retail end of things.
Yeah, exactly. So I say that there's got to be a percentage under that retail or recreational side that is most definitely, you know, by the people who have prescriptions. And, you know, I would almost like to see a poll to see where that's sitting on average.
It'd be nice. Yeah.
It'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because there's more than just you and I doing that. There's tons of people. So
exactly. All righty, on to the next story we go.
For sure. And this one is coming to us from limedisease.org. It's a good time of year to remind people that, you know, we have ticks, and here in Nova Scotia, they run flippin' rampant. So this story caught my eye for that reason. Psilocybin from psychedelic mushrooms may help persistent Lyme disease. Researchers and patient advocates are beginning to explore whether psychedelics could offer relief for individuals living with persistent Lyme disease, a condition that can cause long-term neurological and physical symptoms even after the standard treatments. According to a report from limedisease.org, some patients are turning to psilocybin in an effort to manage symptoms such as chronic pain, depression, fatigue, and cognitive difficulties, often referred to as brain fog. While formal clinical research in this specific area is still limited, anecdotal reports suggest that psilocybin may help some individuals improve their mood, their mental clarity, and overall quality of life. Scientists are particularly interested in psilocybin's effects on the neural inflammation and brain connectivity. Persistent Lyme disease is believed by some researchers to involve inflammatory processes in the nervous system. And psychedelics are being studied for the potential anti-inflammatory and neuroplastic effects. However, experts caution that evidence is still emerging and controlled clinical trials are needed to determine safety, effectiveness, and appropriate treatment protocols. Real world evidence is a little different. The article also highlights the reality that many patients with persistent Lyme disease struggle to find effective treatments with conventional medicine, leading them to explore alternative approaches. As psychedelic research expands, conditions like persistent Lyme disease may become part of future investigations. I sure hope so, especially as scientists look beyond traditional psychiatric applications and into broader neurological and inflammatory disorders. Al, I also know that psilocybin from the psychedelic mushrooms work wonders in helping people fight migraines and relieve that pain.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I was reading through there with you, and some of the results were quite impressive. No serious adverse events, 100% study completion rate, no patients dropped out during that. Broad improvements in fatigue, depression, pain, and sleep quality.
Yeah.
Quality of life improvements for sure.
Yeah. I've been I've been working with psilocybin for a number of years now. And when I first got into working with psilocybin, I had really bad rotator cuff injuries, more so on the right side than on the left. And I had, somebody had given me some golden teacher tincture, which they said, it'll help with the swelling and whatnot. So as I'm taking it one night, I looked at my cannabis lotion and I thought, and I wonder if it would help. So I took some cannabis lotion, I added some psilocybin tincture, and that is what helped the swelling go down in my shoulders. Psilocybin has more than just the neuroplastic brain healing, emotion, mental health healing aspects to it. There's some pain killing, as I've seen with friends. So real world, things that I've seen. Killing their migraines. It helps me personally with my pain. So yeah, it's really nice to see that people are catching up on that.
It just never ends. The benefits.
It's amazing.
It is. It really is. So.
Yeah.
All righty. From that story, we're going to move on to one that we know this. We know this as just from our own life experiences, but seeing something in a report sometimes helps to verify things in some people. So here we go. Our next story. It comes to us from Leafy. And the headline there, come on, switch over. There you go. The headline there says, alcohol and tobacco cause more harm than cannabis. Alcohol causes more harm to society than any other drug in Canada, ranking far above tobacco, opioids, cocaine, meth, and cannabis, according to a landmark scientific assessment published in the Journal of Psychopharmacology. The study, led by researchers at the Center for Addiction and Mental Health, CAMH, as a lot of people know it as, marks the first time multi-criteria decision analysis has been used to assess drug harms across Canada comprehensively. A national panel of 20 experts from 6 provinces evaluated 16 of the most commonly used psychoactive substances across 16 types of harm, considering both damage to users and wider societal impacts. Alcohol received an overall harm rating of 79 out of 100, which is significantly higher than tobacco at 45. Non-prescription opioids at 33, cocaine was 19, meth was 19, and cannabis had a rating of 15. Now, according to J.F. Bolt, who is the senior policy advisor and lead author of the study, says that when we look at harm to people who use drugs and harm to others together, alcohol clearly stands out. Our findings highlight a major gap between the harms linked to alcohol and the way it is currently regulated in Canada. Now, another doctor, Dr. Realm, they're a senior author and scientist at the Institute for Mental Health Policy Research, explained that the scores reflect population-level harm rather than individual risks. They say that some substances, including opioids, cocaine, and meth, rank very high, even though far fewer people use them because the harms are so severe, he says. Alcohol combines serious harms with very widespread use, which is why it causes the greatest total harm in Canada. Now, the two-day decision conference brought together experts from diverse fields, including addiction, medicine, epidemiology, clinical psychology, public health advocacy, and harm reduction. The first scored each drug on a scale of 0 to 100 for each type of harm. Then they weighed the relative importance of each harm category before combining the scores. The 16 types of harm evaluated included short and long-term physical and mental health effects, social harms, such as loss of relationships and employment, and wider impacts, including economic costs, environmental damage, and international consequences. The study noted that while some illegal drugs scored lower overall due to lower prevalences of use, prohibition itself creates additional harms. These include an unregulated supply in which content and potency are variable, as well as risky consumption patterns, such as using alone or sharing equipment. The Canadian research team acknowledged several limitations, including that household surveys may significantly underestimate the prevalence of harmful and dependent drinking, and that the study focused solely on harms without accounting for potential benefits substances might have to the individuals or society as a whole. Nevertheless, they concluded that the findings underscore a failure to adopt policies to address alcohol-related harms despite the known health harms and the existence of proven policy measures. So there's another study, Cindy, that takes the total of everything and shows that alcohol is still the worst drug, because this was done in the UK by a Dr. McNutt, and he said the same thing after his evaluation, that alcohol caused the most damage to society, not only to the person, but collateral damage, how so many people were affected by it.
Yeah. It's I noticed that the top three were alcohol, cigarettes, and prescription drugs. The top three are things that are legal, and they're things that people barely bat an eye for. Like, I mean, if you see somebody like smoking outside a store, like, nobody says anything to that person. Yeah. They just walk by because it's legal. Now, if that person was smoking a joint, even though here in Canada it's legal, there's still, excuse my language, a fuck ton of stigma. Mm-hmm. So if that were me sitting outside smoking a joint, I'd get all kinds of everything. But there's very few people that'll say something to a cigarette smoker.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. There are bars all over the place. There are legal consumption sites for alcoholics everywhere.
Oh, for sure. Safe consumption sites is what they are.
Yes, they are a safe consumption site for alcoholics. Yep. And even that safe consumption site, if the person is deemed too drunk, they're not looked after. They're cut off and kicked out. And what is that going to do to an alcoholic? That's going to piss them off. And what are they going to do? They're going to go take it out on loved ones. They're going to buy black market alcohol, somebody's moonshine from their basement, because there are still all kinds of those people out there too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Or something gets destroyed on the way home.
Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, that's what happens with alcohol. Tobacco is another highly addictive substance. Yeah. And like, Lord knows, I mean, like, I could tell you the stories about what I did to get cigarettes back in the day that I'm completely and utterly ashamed about. And then, then there's prescription meds, which are way easier to get, way easier to get. Like you just put together your, like, and with me, like, sadly, I didn't even need a story. I just went in, I have this pain, I have that pain, I have this mental injury, I have that mental injury. And they just kept throwing drugs at me. Here you go. Have this. Oh, I've got side effects from this. Okay, we'll take these two. That'll get the side effects away. Well, now I have this. Well, here's more drugs for you. And next thing you know, I'm taking piles of drugs 3 times a day legally.
Correct. Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
So, yeah. And, and I understand that, fentanyl on the street is, if you look at one thing if you look at one person, the worst thing they can do is fentanyl that can kill them. But that's illegal. It's harder to get, so that's why they say alcohol is the worst, because once you hit a certain age here in Canada, depending on what province you're in, you can walk in the store and buy it. Nobody's going to stop.
Availability. Yeah. The availability makes it.
Yeah. And then you get drunk, and then you get addicted, and then it is definitely the gateway drug.
Yeah. Alrighty. On to our last story of the day.
Yes, our last story of the day is coming to us from Marijuana Moment. The headline on this one kind of made me chuckle. People who regularly gather to smoke cannabis with their friends could be deemed a criminal gang and deported under the House bill, Congresswoman warns. So interesting. Don't go down to the United States and gather with friends, apparently. A controversial proposal in the United States is raising alarms among cannabis advocates and civil liberties groups. According to Marijuana Moment, a member of Congress is warning that a new House bill could have unintended consequences, including the possibility that people who regularly gather to use cannabis could be classified as part of a criminal gang under certain legal definitions. The concern is tied to how the legislation defines gang activity in relation to controlled substances. Because cannabis remains illegal at the federal level, even in states where it is legal, some interpretations could potentially sweep in otherwise lawful behavior. Critics argue that such a definition could disappropriately impact immigrants who may face severe consequences, including deportation, if accused of gang affiliation under federal law. One lawmaker described the risk as deeply concerning, warning that ordinary social behavior could be mischaracterized in ways that carry serious legal consequences. Supporters of the bill say it is intended to target organized crime networks, not casual cannabis users. However, advocates say vague language in legislation can sometimes lead to broader enforcement than originally intended. The situation highlights an ongoing tension in U.S. cannabis policy. While legalization continues to expand at state level, federal law has not fully caught up, creating legal gray areas that can have real-world consequences. For now, the bill remains under discussion. It's going to be an interesting one. But the debate underscores how cannabis policy can intersect with broader issues like criminal justice and immigration enforcement. Well, Al, what do you think of that one?
I think that's about as absurd as excessive cannabis smoke law that goes on in Arizona. Like, come on. Like, this is just ridiculous. As Jamie Raskin says here, he says that, for example, the bill states a criminal gang is an ongoing group, club, organization, or association of 5 or more people that has one of its primary purposes of commission, which includes felony drug offense, including felony simple possession for marijuana. This could mean a group of high school kids who regularly gather to smoke cannabis, even in a state where it's lawful, could be deemed a criminal gang. Isn't that how 420 got started? A group of kids getting together? Just being at 420 is around the corner. I thought I'd connect that in there. But this is ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said at the beginning of the show, hanging out with your friends out front or on the balcony or on your deck, it could be considered a criminal gang.
We're gang.
Yeah, that's
Foolish.
Not right. Yeah.
Foolish. It
Oh
is
yeah.
foolish.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, not right. They keep coming up with these silly laws when when
Foolish.
some real law, like maybe passing some type of banking act, should be done instead of putting in laws arresting kids for gathering around to smoke some cannabis. And
Yeah.
you don't need to be a kid,
No, you don't. Like, I mean, like
No.
I go to visiting my aunt
Imagine.
a couple of years ago when, like my aunt that just passed when she turned 100 a few years ago. I remember going there, and here is a bunch of elderly people who are living at a care facility, and there was 8 or 9 of them sitting out in the smoking section, all smoking weed together. They could
There
be
you
a
go.
gang thrown in jail.
Yeah, exactly.
The wheelchair gang.
The wheelchair gang, yeah. Don't. Oh well. Hopefully some common sense comes through.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anything else offhand you want to mention before I sign us off?
I will be back with details as I know them, but mark your calendars. April 24th here in Nova Scotia, the Nova Scotia Psychedelic Society is at it again. And we will have our next social April 24th at the Shambhala Center in downtown Halifax on Tower Road, I believe it is. I will be late getting there because I will be landing coming back from BC at 8 p.m. and this is going on from 6:30 to 10. So I will be, coming in at the end of it. We have an amazing facilitator. His name is escaping me right now. I will have more details coming up on Monday. Coming in to give a talk and answer questions. This is I believe he is a cannabis psychedelic facilitator. So he works with cannabis and breath, if I remember correctly. And it should prove to be really interesting and really cool. And I'm kind of sad that I'm not landing at like 6 p.m. and I'm landing at 8 p.m. But I'm still going to be there and run in at the last thing and get to meet the guy. So
Good. Hopefully flight's not late. All right. Other than that, that's the report for today. Thanks to our buds at the Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, At-Eze.ca, and Limestone City Hydroponics. .ca as well. Thanks for everybody for tuning in. Thanks for listening as well as watching. And as always, don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate for silly laws too.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420. We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.